Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another segment, Asaph Cafe. And through the magic of trick photography, we are in the Bat Cave. Remember Adam West Batman television show? Yeah, so we're actually in the Bat Cave. And our special guest today is Mr. Carl Richards. We're going to call him CEO. Mm-hmm. On my left.
Hey, Sam, it's good to be here.
Thank you, sir. And on my further left, affectionately our aging rocker, Emmett. So, Emmett, you can start us off.
Heavenly Father, bless our food and time together in Jesus' name.
Great. So, this show here is impromptu for the television audience. Every week, I invite a guest, and I just play all that Sinatra dinner music while they talk to me, playing the piano. And since we've recruited Carl here, he's going to be our special guest.
Yeah, fascinating.
So I'm going to start playing some Burt Bacharach. I'm going to do some easy listen music.
Oh, yeah, which I love, yeah.
Talk.
Uh-huh.
You like this song? Yeah.
Heard some music, beautiful music coming in off the street, and wandered in, and Asaph said, "Have a seat."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just drafted you right off.
Yep. Yep.
And everybody likes this song.
A fascinating old retired punk rocker.
I was going to say he was interested in my observations
Yes.
on music, and we were just talking about Gordon Lightfoot.
Yes. Yeah, I love Gordon Lightfoot. I love his beautiful, easy listening stuff. I did not like the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. It's more of his funky stuff.
Well, you know, it's that I don't know whether he wrote it himself or not. I never looked that far into it, but
It's his most favorite song, and
well, of course, but it's a good ballad, spoken or read.
Yes.
Okay. And with just a little bit of changes in the meter, it would have been tremendous poetry. However, with the music he put it to was sing-song.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. It got on your nerves.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And the sad part of it is that hit close to home, because I was living in one of the towns in Ohio which recruited most of the men off the Edmund Fitzgerald.
I see.
One of my neighbors went down on that ship.
I see. Yeah, that would.
You know.
Do you like songs like Rainy Day People? You know, rainy day people always seem to know when you're feeling blue. That's beautiful.
Hey, Zach, can you play that?
I might be able to. We'll see.
Rainy day people always seem to know when you're feeling blue.
That is beautiful.
It is. It really is, you know. It's surprising that stuff like that has never been covered by modern music. You know,
you know, the music of the past is, I think it was the best. Like, around the 50s and 60s, I think they were at their best as far as writing popular music. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's not to put anyone down with the current stuff today, but they don't have all the Burt Bacharach music, Dionne Warwick, and all those fun songs, Tom Jones and all the rest.
I think it's a change in the attention span.
I think it's a generational thing, too.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. We have so
thing.
many... today's 30-year-old has grown up with MTV.
Yeah.
And I've never watched MTV.
I have. Many times.
The flashing images and discontinuity just does something to me. Mm-hmm. I don't know, it brings out latent ADD or something. I can't watch it. You know, music like what was done in the 50s, and especially the easy listening stuff that you like, was you have to sit down and smell the roses.
That's true.
Have a soda.
Yeah.
Eat your lunch. And that's why, you know, this is the kind of stuff that's played in taverns and restaurants. Yeah. You know, it reflects well with it.
It does.
And today's kids don't have any time for that. It's quick, loud, garish, shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, I can either listen to like Rainy Day People and then switch it over to Metallica. I love Metallica. Have you ever heard Metallica's heavy metal?
I've heard some of it. I've never listened to much, but that's such an odd combination of tastes.
I know. Yeah, it's either hardcore punk or like, you know, Dropkick Murphys or 9 Inch Nails. Ever listen to 9 Inch Nails?
I probably have, but I never paid any attention.
And then listen to Gordon Lightfoot or John Denver. I wish a cover band of John Denver would, like they would, if they ever have a cover band of John Denver, wouldn't it be great if they toured with Cannibal Corpse?
I don't know where you'd go with that.
Have you ever heard Cannibal Corpse?
No, but I can imagine their music.
Yeah. Cliffs are nice. It's just brilliant, you know. Or Rainy Day People and that. It's brilliant. Yeah. What do you think of that?
I don't know. Make a punk out of Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, speaking of Olivia Newton-John, you remember this song here?
Because I love either John Denver or Cannibal Corpse. I really don't like much in between. Isn't that what? I can listen to John Denver's Rocky Mountain High, then turn on the heavy metal channel on 916 if there's Cannibal Corpse on, like Twist the Knife Slowly. I'm really into that, you know? What do you think?
You lost me.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be quite a contrast if they toured together?
I'm trying to put the name on that tune.
Let's Get Physical.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, Let's Get Physical. I didn't like that song.
That was in her struggling era when she was becoming irrelevant and couldn't quite pull it off. Where is she?
Anyway, that's Olivia Newton-John.
Like I said, I can't slam dance anymore. If I went to a Cannibal Corpse concert, I couldn't go into the mosh pit. I would be torn apart, you know.
Well, that's okay. That's why I call you our aging rocker.
Yeah.
You're welcome here at the cafe anytime.
I used to be able to do it, but not anymore, you know.
Now, Carl, let's ask you some questions. What's your favorite kind of music you like?
Mostly
had to choose
it's older rock.
Older rock?
And some easy listening, you know.
Any particular artist in particular that you like?
Well, you know, it comes and goes. A little bit of everything, really.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of Bob Seger. I've got
There
a
you
lot
go.
of John Denver. I've got a lot of...
Okay, John Denver.
I love John Denver. I love John Denver.
Rocky Mountain, you mentioned.
I'm sorry,
that
sorry.
always strikes me so profound, you know.
Yes.
Let me do that again. I didn't like
Talk
the
to
way I
God
did
and
it.
listen to the casual
Yeah,
reply.
incredible. It's just incredible. So
Whoever
good.
wrote that was truly inspired.
Yeah, he was, yeah. Do you like Neil Diamond?
You know, he was kind of like a poster boy for easy listening when I was a kid.
Exactly.
You know? And a couple of music serials had focused on him. You know how he'd struggled in New York.
Yeah.
You know, done some jingles and such, and what he went through. By the time he broke through, he was older, and really he looked ridiculous doing rock. So,
Yeah. But I loved Neil Diamond too. I love Neil Diamond. They actually have a cover band I saw a couple of times in town, Cherry Cherry. They were pretty good. I really liked that. I even have a poster in my bedroom, and the person who did it looked so much like a young Neil Diamond. He said, "To Emmett, you rule." And I was in my punk outfit, mohawk leather jacket, and I was just enjoying this. You know, it was amazing. Yeah, he's fantastic. But yeah, I love Neil Diamond.
Well, there was Longfellow Serenade. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, wonderful. Yeah.
I mean, now that is imagery, okay?
Yeah.
You know how you could write a dirty song in such a way that it would pass.
Yes, I know.
But those days are done.
Yeah.
Done like our youth.
Yeah.
Yours and mine.
Yeah.
You'll never be in the mosh pit. I'll never be on the ski slopes.
Yeah. Did you like a song? It was on one of his rarer songs, "Porcupine Pie." It was on the Moods album.
You know,
I got tons of Neil Diamond at home.
You know, I have a lot of it too. And you know where I got it from?
Where?
I stole it off the internet. You know, it's like I would remember LimeWire. The file after Napster went down, LimeWire took its place.
Interesting, yeah.
And I had a separate computer. I would just set target.
Yeah.
I'd feed in about 5 names or 5 titles, or wanted to get a movie or something, and just let it go all night while I'm sleeping. It would just steal everything. And boy, aside from the bank balances of those strangers that I got.
I've done that before too. Just play music at night, and
Well,
just...
no, not playing. Just let my computer go and steal it with,
Oh, God.
with the file sharing.
Okay, I see.
So I wind up with more music than most radio stations have, and a lot of it is stuff I would never even go search for. you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I'll try to bring some of this stuff back to life for you while you're here on today's cafe here.
Porcupine Pie was just a funny song. He was a porcupine pie. It's an actual thing you ate. But he always sang, "You've got to eat it with love so your hand will turn green." What? This is brilliant writing!
Didn't he write the Dr. Pepper jingle too?
I
Was that
can't
Barry
remember.
Manilow?
I don't know. I do not know.
I'm trying to think, because one of the two of them wrote the Dr. Pepper. They did it in concert. I remember hearing a bootleg tape of them coming out in concert. He called it his Very Strange Medley or something like that. And it included all the stuff he wrote as jingles.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't like Dr. Pepper. It tastes too much like cough syrup medicine.
I had a problem with Dr. Pepper when I was a kid growing up. My mom used to make us lunches, and she'd put a little soda in our little, little
Yes.
lunch pails that they used to have. And I loved it when I had like 7-Up or Pepsi, but when I had a Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
And it would always bubble. The bubbles would go up in your nose, you know.
You know, I don't think I ever had it until I was 13 or so. It was never a big seller, you know. It was, back then it was an independent company.
Yeah.
It was based down south, and it was like one of those things you buy when everything else was sold out. I don't think I ever had it. And it just struck me as too syrupy, but then Pepsi was too syrupy in those days, too. We all drank Coke.
Yeah, I love Coke and Pepsi, but I don't like Dr. Pepper. It tastes like cough syrup medicine. Yuck!
It does have a taste of that now that I recall it. You know, I don't drink soda at all anymore.
I do. I love soda. It's made from prune juice. I think its big thing is prune juice, so that's why it tastes like cough syrup.
Speaking of soda, I'll take some of that secret ingredient.
All right.
I want to explain the joke to you about the secret ingredient.
I was going to say, maybe it's rocket fuel, you know.
No.
Keep you going 26 hours a day.
I'll probably need one of those cups there.
Oh, let me get the bottom cup off the top one here.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go. Well, let me explain how that joke goes, why we call it secret ingredient. Well, the television audience, too. Did you see any of the Star Trek movies at all?
Honestly, I didn't. I saw the series, the original series. And I saw a couple of the new ones, but I never saw the movie.
All right, let me explain. In the movies, they had basically 10 Star Trek films, and the first 6 of them were based on the original characters, William Shatner's character. In Star Trek number 5, there was a scene where Captain Kirk was on shore leave, and he was with Dr. McCoy and Mr. Spock. They were on this planet. Oh, actually, they were on Earth, shore leave. You know, they were at Mount Yosemite, I think it is where they were. And Dr. McCoy was making some beans, just plain old beans. And his secret ingredient was Tennessee whiskey that he poured into the beans without telling Spock. And so before they feed Spock these beans, he goes, "This is an old recipe of McCoy's from generations," while he's stirring the beans. He goes, "And if you snub your Vulcan nose at this, you'll be insulting generations of McCoys."
Yep.
So anyway, McCoy serves Spock the beans, and he's eating it. He's like, "I've never tasted any beans like this." And, you know, he's all logical there trying to figure it out. "I wonder what makes these beans taste like this." And McCoy says, "It's Tennessee whiskey, Spock." "Am I to assume that you put alcohol in your beans?" And McCoy says, "Yeah, that's the secret ingredient." Then Captain Kirk says, "You got any more of that secret ingredient?" That's where the joke came from. So Emmett and I use that in the cafe. So when we're actually drinking, it's just Coke. It's plain old Coke. But we just call it secret ingredient. You know.
Yeah.
And it makes the joke funny, you know, on the show.
Of course.
The secret ingredient.
Be a lot funnier if we all were getting looped here.
Yeah, they don't allow alcohol on the set, sadly.
No, we can't drink for real. Not
Sadly, not on the set,
and
sadly.
not on television either.
Well, that's a good argument for you getting your own set.
Because I love to drink wine and beer as a Roman Catholic, you know, so.
Well, that would be interesting if we could do that for real, but here we're not allowed to do that, so we can't. But we can have. Hey, it's just
I'm recalling all the stuff I've read.
It's the community access rules. So.
I don't watch much television or movies. However, I read a lot, including all the stories of backstage. And, you know, the story was Humphrey Bogart when he was filming the movie with Katharine Hepburn, the African Queen.
Okay.
They were doing a bit of it in Cuba. Okay, and United Fruit Company had a pier down there, and Bogart was on there, and the public relations guy, he was just a kid at the time, like 25 years old, went over and said, "Mr. Bogart, can you say something for the company news magazine?" And Bogart looked at him, blotto out of his mind, and said a 2-word blessing to the guy, which never made it to the company news magazine. You know, F off. Those words were not going to get published.
Yep.
No, I don't think so.
But yeah, Bogart had a little bit of a drinking problem there on the set. Of course, many of them did. Even into the 80s.
There's your time goes by, the Humphrey Bogart Casablanca theme. That was it.
Well, it was, you know, it's like so much else. It was working movies is probably a very easy job, but at the same time a very hard job.
You know, I've done some work in Hollywood. I'm not an actor or anything, but I think the hardest thing about the movie business is not the movies itself, like you're saying, it's the temperament of the actors.
It's the isolation. I mean, you have no real life. You can never pull the mask off and just be yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and the funny thing is that reaches into a lot of fields. Okay?
Yeah. But I mean, especially in the acting world, because, you know, if you think of what acting is, all it is pretending.
Yes.
You're pretending for a living. And there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself.
No.
But some actors, it goes beyond the pretending stage where they act like these prima donnas or something like that, and they can be very tough to work with.
Yeah.
Well, they never get a reality check. You know,
Yeah.
they live in a bubble. Some of them have been there all their lives.
I know, and I'm not picking on them, but I've worked enough in Hollywood to know that there's a lot of truth in that. They get forgetful and they high and mighty kind of
I don't
mentality.
I don't pick on them either. Like I was saying with them here a few minutes ago, you know, we get to that point where you've been isolated and and kept from the real world to where you lose touch and
Yeah.
and what's the word I'm looking for? You've basically become so alienated with normal people. You know, this is the danger you have with kid actors. Okay? So many of them are messed up, and God, you probably saw in the paper that Erin, what's her face, who you know.
Oh, Erin Moran?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think...
She didn't have any skills. Okay, she was a cute kid. She was an average-looking young woman. Okay, and obviously that didn't transfer over very well. And so there she was at 25 or 26. Her show's canceled. She has no life. Okay,
Yeah.
and the royalties come in for a while, but then they stop, and she slowly goes down the tubes. I guess she.
Well, that can happen to a lot of child actors. I think you have to really be grounded as a child actor with reality.
Who has been a child actor who really survived and did okay?
Oh,
Very
Ron
few.
Howard.
Oh well.
Opie, little Opie. Andy Griffith Show?
He's done okay, but is he really?
I think he is. He's done some great films over the years.
Okay.
Like,
I don't know that much about what he's doing these days.
well, okay, I can. Let's talk about him for a second. I mean, he's one of the child actors that I think has his head screwed on very tight.
Okay.
Ron Howard.
Okay.
He did the Apollo movie with Tom Hanks. He directed that.
Okay.
He did the Grinch movie
Okay.
with Jim Carrey.
Didn't see it, but go ahead.
No, it was a fun movie. It was just based on the Dr. Seuss cartoon version.
Right.
In fact, Anthony Hopkins was the narrator, and they used the exact same words in the movie that they did in the cartoon when they were reading for the Grinch movie. And Ron Howard's just done tons of other movies I could even think of because I don't have a list on me.
Well, that's wonderful.
But
However, he's the rarity. I mean,
Yeah.
He's one of the exceptions to the rule, and there are a few other, I think, child actors that have held their own that did well, but the majority of them, unfortunately, don't do well.
Yeah.
well,
And I don't think it's because they're bad people. I think it's more the influence in their lives when they're younger.
well, that's exactly it. It's so
stuff like
universal
that.
a case. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Miley Cyrus first came out,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all afraid that she was going, she was going to turn into what Britney Spears had turned into. We can't let that happen. That they were trying to limit her exposure and such. She'd just come off the Mouseketeers, and here she's going to be a child star in her own name. And they wanted somebody cleaner than Britney had become.
Well, think of the original Musketeer, Annette Funicello. She grew up to be a wonderful young
But
woman.
that was a different era, though.
I know, I realize that, yeah.
They made hardly any money back then, and they, at the time, the law required them to go to regular school so many hours.
Yeah.
You look back at movies in the 50s where they would actually take, children's roles and put them on 17, 18-year-old kids. It would look so strange at first, but then when you understand, first, the law they were trying to work with, and second, it really was a good idea, and that it avoided the exposure.
Right.
How many kids have been ruined? I mean, remember Buffy out of Family Affair? She committed suicide at age 17.
I'm afraid she did. And so it's hit or miss. To sum this part, I just think it depends on the influences, the grounding you get as a child.
Right.
I think the support are factors. If you have a good family, like Kim Fields, for example, The Facts of Life, the African American actress that played Tootie.
Okay.
She grew up to be a beautiful young woman.
Well,
Yeah,
she
did.
stayed out of the news, and that's good.
Well, she comes from a Christian family too, so
Well,
those
that's
Christian roots
There you
really.
go. There you go. Now I know that's
Yeah.
unfashionable to say, and I'm not even a very religious person. But I'm a deist by practice. Okay.
Okay.
But I recognize natural law.
Good,
And
good.
And I think that the Bible and natural law are complements. They're just
Absolutely.
different ways of expressing the same thing. Okay. Those that live by the law of Moses, the Old Testament, the Ten Commandments, do well, okay?
Yeah.
And this is something we have gotten so far away from.
Yeah.
You know, as a square refugee from the Rust Belt, you know, I come out here to what's basically a California culture, and it's really eye-opening that way.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Asaph, am I too much of a downer here?
No,
Well, it's
no.
the truth. It's the truth, you know.
You know, it's and
Tumbling tumbleweeds.
that,
But
that's
keep
what
going.
that's what I bring, you know, to whoever I meet in town. You know,
Yeah.
I'm from a different background, and I
That's fine. See, and that's what makes this show work, because I just like the impromptu-ness and the
Yes.
spontaneity, and just I tell people be themselves. You're not. You
I can
notice
see
we
you
didn't.
holding your head.
No. I like that. Believe me. I mean, I. How can I put it? You notice we didn't put no makeup, you know, at all. And I'm like the most easiest guy to work with in
Yeah.
film,
Well,
and Emmett too. I
that
just
you-
want people to be themselves. I want you to feel
Anybody
relaxed.
that wants to come down and
and talk.
join Asaph for lunch, he's a very welcoming host.
So yeah, I've been doing this show for almost 3 years, and I have not changed the format. Time flies.
Yeah.
I'm approaching my 3rd year, and Emmett's been with me about 1.5 years, something like that.
Yeah,
And
about 2 years,
Been
yeah.
it's just been a delight having him. You know, when I first started this show, those 2 brick walls was all I had. We weren't in the bat cave like today, all fancy.
I keep waiting for those to crumble and fall down, you know?
No,
yeah.
they're leaning backwards actually, so. But it has like a stand in the back that supports. And no, seriously, when I first started this show, and you know how this show started? I created a real show that got picked up by PBS called Music with Asaph. It's a remake of the Lawrence Welk show that I actually created
Okay.
that got accepted.
Very good.
And when we did what was called a promo for it, we were telling the television audience at that time that this new Lawrence Welk show was going to come out. And then I had 3 hours of recording time left. And at the beginning of the promo, I just blurted out, "Welcome to Asaph Cafe," because we had those 2 walls, and it sort of looked like a cafe. And I had like this table here, and that's a signature cloth. That cloth has been on every episode for almost 3 years. So we had those 2 brick walls and that table there at the time. And I had the hostess for the show. She's not here today. And when I said Asaph Cafe, we did our promo for that new show. Then Joe said, "Hey, you got 3 hours of recording time. Let's just use the film." And so I said, "Okay, let's just do an episode called Asaph Cafe." And that's how it started, with those 2 brick walls and that table, that little table.
Yep.
And when I first created this show, I thought, "Oh man, this is not gonna go." 6 months later, it'll fall by the wayside. But you know, people started watching this show
Very good.
in its basic stage. And then we went from 2 walls to 3 walls, and it started expanding. And then more people started showing up and calling and wanting to be on the show, and they were watching it.
Hey, anybody that can pull the mayor in has got to be okay.
Yeah, he's been on here more than once.
Well, there you
It's
go.
amazing. Yep.
Yeah, and this show just started growing.
So how's the PBS angle working?
Well, I just have to get the funding for it, and we'll be doing it every week. Now, the pilot, you know that card I gave you?
Right.
If you go on YouTube and put Music with Asaph, you can see the actual television pilot. And it was shot at the Florence
You tried the
Hotel here in
Washington
town.
Foundation, maybe.
Yeah, I did. I hadn't heard anything from them yet, but I contacted like the
Sounds like the kind
Tiger
of thing they
Woods.
say they were interested in, you know?
No, I need a lot of money. I contacted like the Tiger Woods Foundation. I contacted Oprah Winfrey Foundation and so on. And you know those shows like when you on PBS and it says like Charlie Rose funded by such and such and such. I've been contacting them, but it's just too early.
Well,
But see, that's a future dream to launch off that series. Now the Lawrence Welk Network has the DVD version of the show that you're going to watch later, and they said that if you can get the first episode on the air, we'll try to help you to spread it. And I think what they'll do is take the shows that I produce and do a test in their area and see if it works. But for now, I'm just doing Asaph Cafe, and this is just a silly, delightful
Yeah.
show. And then Emmett started coming in. He has his surreal jokes and his
Oh, yeah.
surreal poetry. Did you bring that surreal book
Again,
today?
yes, I did surreal poetry.
Let's give him an earful of surreal
Have you
poetry.
ever, however, I'd like to do an introduction again on surrealism. Do you know anything about surrealism or the art or poetry of surrealism or surreal concepts?
Well,
It's an actual art form. It was taught me in art class. And
I
I
use
think
the word loosely time to time, but I don't really understand the concept as a discipline.
it was basically, there's only one thing about surrealism I don't like, because it was invented by communists. I don't like communists, so I'm not standing up for communism.
Yeah, I mean, we know.
It's originated from the Dada movement, which was just all this weird stuff jumbled together. But people thought, well, maybe if we can help evolve man, we can put the dream state of dreaming, cross that with reality, and have a super realism, a surrealism.
Okay.
There are people like Salvador Dali who would paint like watches melting,
See
that kind of thing.
Painting, yes.
You've seen that painting? That's surreal.
Oh, yes, everybody has. I mean, that's his signature work.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I got this at the library about 30 years ago, and then I ordered it. The poetry of surrealism. Some surrealists would actually make poetry, kind of short little stories that were surreal, and some of them are hilarious, some of them are boring, but some of them are unbelievable.
Yeah, well, let's give our guest Carl some surrealism here.
Sawdust from the scales. While I lick my body, as the day licks its own body, somewhere between the sky and a lunch break, a cannon fires point blank at somebody's verdant soul. A rooster on crystal crutches hops along behind a mammal bell, which soars with the stiffness of the air, whining like feminine firewood. The tongue is useless for talking. It's better to use your feet to speak than that old ball tongue of yours. It's better to use your navel for talking. What the tongue is good for is knitting up monuments, is bowing away on an inked violin, is washing up whales covered with seaweed braid, is fishing around for the roots of the poles. The tongue is good for letting hang out of your mouth and letting flutter around in the wind. Wow, wasn't that great?
Intense, man, intense.
Another one.
Give me a pint of whiskey and I can write like that all day.
Yeah. A lot of them probably did do it on pints of whiskey. That's probably where this came from. And then another one, Infinite Millimeter Manifesto. First we have to let forms, colors, sprout sounds sprout, and then explain them. First we have to allow legs, wings, hands to grow and then fly. Seeing form manifest themselves. I'd be the last to draw up a plan if I were involved with a timetable or a mathematical calculation or a war. The art of stars, flowers, forms, colors overlaps with the infinite. Isn't that incredible? Whoa!
He's got that look like he's spaced out, like, what have I got myself into?
That is words of wisdom we should all live by, folks.
I could give you my only piece of poetry. A maiden quite fair from Duluth had a rather rough bout with vermouth. The night with boys, the oldest deploys. That maiden's no maiden, forsooth.
I like it. It's not surreal, but I like it.
Okay.
And
now I've been a complete.
And you know what, guys? So much time has gone by. Over almost 40 minutes have gone by already. See how fast time goes?
Yes.
Once you get into it, absolutely.
Yeah, keep going. We still got some time, but I just want to let you know. And I wanted to make you feel as comfortable as possible. I know we just drafted you here, spur of the moment, but see, that's what makes this show work.
Well, let's lay it all out to the viewer here. I got shanghaied, and in a very friendly way. Asaph's the most charming of hosts, and I've seen him in the mall performing. So when he said, "Sit down, we're going to have a talk, and we're going to have a good time, and you're going to be on camera,"
right?
What can I say? You know, but I have, I had no preparation. I don't even have.
Well, see, that's what makes this show work.
Exactly.
It's impromptu. Now, you know, when I first started the show, we used to literally walk the streets and grab people, but that started getting too difficult, so I had to start planning guests as time went by.
What was difficult? You wound up getting too many guys who were like 3 quarts into their lunch? Or?
Yeah, stuff like that, or...
Go down to the Madison Street Bridge and, interview the guys there.
Yeah, we've had some issues, so...
Well, you know, the nice thing about cable access that I love about cable access, you don't have to be professional with a professional camera crew, makeup, lighting, a professional script. It doesn't have to be professional like ABC television.
Right.
It can be impromptu, whatever you want.
And see, that's why I think this show works. I just tell people be themselves. And we used to have real food when I was first doing this, but it started getting to the point where grease was getting everywhere, and so I had to cut back on that to just drinks and stuff.
Well,
and food started getting into the piano.
Impromptu is good, but the thing about impromptu is you never know how it's going to come out.
That's what makes that.
You discover you have something that you want to frame. It works so well. But the other 9 times, you look at it and say, I wasted plastic on this. I wasted an hour of my life on this.
But the only thing that's fancy about this show is with the experimenting with it when we got into the green screen technology. And let's face it, you and I are never going to be in the Batcave for real. So this is about the closest that all three of us will.
I don't think so, but you know what?
Be in the Batcave.
You're talking about Adam West earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember his physique very well. It was not Charles Atlas's physique.
No, but he was very handsome. He had the right look. You remember how he got started, don't you? He started doing commercials. television commercials.
Right, a lot of them do. I didn't know that he was one, but...
He was one of them, yeah. He did some really cheesy commercials, but he had such a look about him that the directors said, hey, we got to use this guy. And then they started putting him in Westerns. He did some early Westerns.
I think I've seen a couple.
Like The Big Valley with...
okay.
Remember The Big Valley with Richard Long and Linda Evans?
I was about 5 years old when it was out, but I remember...
Yeah, he did some guest shots.
Big
Yeah,
Valley.
it went something like this, if I can remember. See.
Do you like the newer Batman movies? Actually, I like the newer Batman movies that started in 1989 with the Joker and such. They were a lot more serious.
Yeah,
They
more
were very
sinister
clever.
looking.
They were dark.
They were-
Yeah,
That's
that's
what I
the
like
word
about
dark, yeah. But
That's what I liked about
getting back to Adam West, yeah, he eventually got the part of Batman, and for him it was history.
Well, it always struck me as amusing, though, that he didn't have the bulging muscles in the comic book.
But see, that's what makes that work, because the original Batman in the comics wasn't all chiseled and buffed. We live in a culture where you got to be chiseled these days.
Well, better living through chemistry. We all have steroids now. Everybody can be Charles Atlas.
Yeah, but I mean, my point is, he just had the right look at that time, in that time period. And of course, Burt Ward was only like 20 years old in real life at that time, very young.
Actually look younger than that.
Well, yeah. Some people can be like 20 years old and look like they're teenagers still, and he was just one of them, and it worked. And the Batman, I did that news program I was telling you I do? Well, I did some stories on, like I did a story on the actor Alfred that played the actor, the butler. Yeah, Alan Napier was his name in real life. He was a British actor, and I did a story on him on that news program, and we talked about Batman and the series. It worked. It just happened to come on ABC at the right time at that point in television history, I guess is the way to describe it. It was a big hit. Batman, they made like Batman lunchboxes and anything pertaining to Batman at that time.
I remember that so well.
Oh, yeah.
Batman, people don't even remember when we had those lunchboxes.
Oh yeah, I had all those TV show lunchboxes.
Oh yeah, I used to have a lot of those, or Star Wars lunchboxes.
I think I got
lunchboxes,
one time, and from then on, my parents said, that's it. You're going with the plain
Paper
old
bag.
generic. Well, the paper bag came later. Actually,
Yeah.
I welcomed the paper bag. By that time, I was 12 years old, and everybody had a paper bag. And
Yeah, you didn't want to carry a lunchbox at 12-year-old, but when you're like a little younger, yeah, it was cool.
Well, I didn't mind carrying around a lunchbox when I was 12 years old. I didn't mind that,
Well, I carried a phaser. Star Trek. I had a phaser that I used to, when I was in 8th grade, I used to actually wear on my side of my belt that hooked on.
you know how old you're making me feel? I was 20. I was 19 when Star Wars came. Okay, Star Trek, you said, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I was in junior high school, and I used to think I ruled that school because I used to walk to class with this phaser.
Cool.
On
That
my
is
left
awesome.
side. I do, seriously, as an 8th grader.
The sad part of it is you can't do that today. You
No.
bring a water pistol to school, you go to jail.
I know it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I did. For most
Well,
of my 8th grade year, I had a phaser that I carried.
I didn't have it happen to me myself, but I knew of people who, my age, who went to school in New York City at the time. Some of the Catholic schools had shooting ranges in the basement. You'd bring your gun to school, you'd check into the gun locker, and then, as part of your marksmanship club, you'd go in the basement, shoot, and then you'd carry your gun back home on the street.
Yeah.
Nobody got bothered. We all
Yeah.
understood what guns were about.
Yeah.
And this is the real loss, okay? A
Really?
gun is a tool.
Exactly.
Okay? A man who can use a tool is going to be more interesting than a man who cannot.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I've always been a strong proponent of the right to bear arms.
Thank heavens. Yeah, good.
And the funny thing is, I never owned a gun until very recently. Just when I got out here to Montana, when I, getting a
Well, I think that's the
60
regular
permit.
lifestyle of most Montanans.
Yeah.
They
Well,
bear
it's
their arms.
a
and-
good lifestyle.
It is.
There's nothing wrong with that.
First of all, now when you go through the training, and I've been through it, okay,
Yeah.
you get in heavy instruction on the responsibility,
Yeah.
legal and personal.
Yeah.
Okay, if the course instructor sees you in the range grabbing or holding the pistol the wrong way, he'll caution you about that. Now in the movies where they have you reach across the belly,
Yeah.
you don't do that in real life.
Yeah, yeah.
And here's why: because in getting that gun up, you're pointing that barrel at 4 or 5 other people.
Yeah.
Okay, so the only proper way to carry it is on your hip, so you're aiming at the ground until you get at your target.
Exactly.
And so many people don't realize that.
Yeah.
Actually, a few cops don't either. When I was in
Yeah.
Texas, I know the Harris County Sheriff's Department all had their holsters crossover with the butts forward there.
Yeah.
I always thought they'd look cool, you know. Boom, boom,
Yeah.
until one of them clocked me in the nose with it.
Yeah.
Short version of Night and Day. But yeah, I think that's fine. If the people want to bear arms here in Montana, I think this is the perfect place for that sort of thing. That's fine. They're going to be having the, I think it's tomorrow, isn't it? The actual debate about that here in Montana.
I didn't know there was a debate coming up.
Yeah, there's two men running for
Oh, yes. Okay,
office.
I know the two men. I didn't know they were having a debate on.
Yeah, Rob Quist and
Greg Gianforte.
yeah, they're going to have it's either tomorrow or Saturday. They're having a debate about that thing that we were talking about, the gun laws. And,
All rights depend upon.
well, I think they're both in favor of it, but I think they just oppose
I-
it.
No, Ron Quist is for registration of firearms. The Democrat, whatever Quist, is for registering
Okay.
all firearms in a federal database.
Oh,
That is
that's right,
absolutely
that's
yes.
right.
Okay.
Well, they'll figure that out in the actual debate, and people were sending their questions to the television studio ahead of time, so whoever the moderator will be, they'll be using those questions.
Well,
It'll be probably an interesting debate to
I hope they
see.
explore that well.
Oh, no, I think they are. I think that's gonna be the main topic.
I am vehemently opposed to that.
Good, good. I'm glad you are. Good.
The simple thing is, the right to register and control is the right to take away.
Exactly. That's
Right.
what I've always heard. Yeah.
Right.
All rights depend upon the right of the individual to defend himself and
Yes.
his family with whatever weapons are available.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's coming up either tomorrow or Saturday. I think it's tomorrow, but you can check your
Well,
station or whatever.
All I can say is, well, never mind. You know,
But you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just I'm
You know,
just saying.
it's the college town mentality here, where so often the community is so opposed, so
Yeah.
diametrically in opposition to the
Yeah.
surrounding area.
I know, it's
I've seen
bizarre.
this in Ohio. I've seen this in New York. I've seen this in Colorado. I've seen not so much in California, where the state is heavily liberal. But
I know.
you know, it does create a friction. And
It does, I know.
I have to wonder how it is that the academic community has gotten so far removed from the average population.
Yeah, I wonder that myself. Yeah.
I mean, what is it? You know, we all live in the same world.
Yeah.
We're close to the earth here, okay? You go for a hike, you're gonna meet a wildcat.
Yeah.
You know, wildcat doesn't want to have his back scratched. He looks at you as a big stick of jerky.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to have some means of defending yourself.
Exactly.
If you're not interested in defending yourself, don't buy a gun and don't hike the trails, because that wildcat is still
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
out there.
exactly.
That is called "Call Me" by Mel Torme. But yeah, you guys got a point, and I think that's what's going to be the main part of that debate.
Well,
So it'll be most interesting to see how that's
all I
going to
can
go.
say in respect to all your viewers is, may the better man win.
Yeah, and I will leave it at that. But I think that we'll see who the better man will be come tomorrow when they have that debate. Now, by the time this episode airs, they will have already had it. But you're right. May the better man win. That's a good way to end that.
Exactly.
We got about 10 minutes left, guys. Emmett, you got some final words you want to say?
A surreal joke, as my usual. This is based on a Gordon Lightfoot song. I actually got a new Gordon Lightfoot record. You know, I love Gordon Lightfoot. It was made in 1998. He's still making records. Unfortunately, it's out of print, so we had to get it on the computer. I special ordered it. One of my favorite songs. It was, and I looked at the lyric sheet to see, is this really a toad or a man calling himself Uncle Toad? No! It's not one of his more popular songs or well known. It's Gordon Lightfoot wrote a song called Uncle Toad, and it was very beautiful. You know, it was about a toad who lived in a compost heap outside, and you know, Uncle Toad said, "You better straighten up right." When Uncle Toad spoke, it was not a pretty sight. Dun 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 dun. Dun. Uncle Toad, you know, saying, "Kids, you better stop drinking that brew. If you don't, the joke's on you." Uncle Toad said, "You best get it right." When Uncle Toad spoke, it was not a pretty sight. Just beautiful and looking up at the moon. A toad moralizing to people and hopping around and said, "You better get it right." Imagine a toad talking. Wow.
You know,
surreal. I loved that song.
He must have changed a lot. You know, I saw him in concert in 1986, Chautauqua, New York. That's a regular stop of his now, but that was the first time he appeared there, and nobody knew what to expect because, you know, it's a summer resort community. I don't know if you know what the Chautauqua Institution is.
No.
I lived nearby and worked there for 5 years. but it's a summer cultural center. Okay, 2 months out of the year they close the gates, it becomes private property, and they have open air lectures, street concerts. Used to have a heavily Christian religious program. They don't so much anymore because that's kind of like out of fashion now. But they also have a bit of popular entertainment. They try not to focus on that. They more focus on the learning aspects. But, on what they call Old First Night, the original calendar date that was their first night. At first, they will have a name opener. And the first year that Gordon Lightfoot was there, it was their Old First Night opener. And I thought he did a very good performance. I got the impression of a guy who was awkward as a showman, but really into his music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's always been.
And I think he still is. It was a wonderful song. I thought it was great. By the way, Gordon Lightfoot did come to concert in Missoula a few years ago. I didn't have the $70 to go see him.
Well, that's nothing compared to when Paul McCartney was here. It was $250 here in Missoula to see him.
You're better off without it for the simple reason Gordon Lightfoot, and I've heard him speak of late. He's past it. Okay. It happens to everybody. We're young, we get started, then we mature, we age, and we lose it.
This happens to everybody.
Exactly, but I think he wants to perform for his fans. That's great, but I don't think that's the venue you want to be spending $70 to see. I really don't.
You got a point, but the fans. If they're used to you, even if you're past your prime, they just want to see you.
Exactly.
And they have that thinking in their head. They know you're not going to give them what you were when you're like, say, 30. But they just want the thrill to see you so they can
Exactly. And I've seen him older. He sounds very old, very hoarse, very high-pitched. Oh, yeah, he doesn't look the same as he used to. But I still, I've seen him in concerts like that. I still love to go see him.
Yeah, like Tom Jones. I would love to see Tom Jones, but, he's way past his prime, too.
I didn't know he was still alive.
Yeah, he's like 80 now.
I can see Tom Jones would be your kind of music, but I don't think I've heard his music in 30 years.
Well, yeah, I don't
play some Tom Jones.
I'll do that. I don't think he's from the U.S. Let's do his signature song real quick.
But anyway, Uncle Toad was in a laundromat saying, "Better straighten up right." It was fascinating. Then he hopped away into this other dimension. These two washing machines were sticking their tongues out at each other. It was very fascinating. And then Uncle Toad started sticking his tongue out at the two washing machines. Then this one dryer came along and said, "Oh, I can't see around that." Wasn't that hilarious?
Oh.
Surreal, like this poetry.
It is. Well, you talk about strange places.
Yep.
Ever been to Toronto?
No.
Gordon Lightfoot is from Toronto.
Yeah.
And he got to start as a disc jockey, and he was doing music in coffee houses. Toronto is in some ways, it's very like Missoula, but with a Canadian accent.
Wow.
Okay? In other words, there are some things in Toronto that you'll only find in Canada.
Yeah.
And it's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the street performers on Yonge Street in Toronto, and I used to love that place. It's changed now, and now it's such a hassle to actually cross the border that I don't think I'll ever get there again. But when I was young, and I discovered Canadian beer, which is much stronger than these days. Again, the changes. Microbreweries that sell 7% beer. Okay, and it's good beer too. But in those days, the only beer you had was Stroh's versus Budweiser versus, what other mule excrement you could have. And you go to Canada and you buy some Molson's that comes from Molson's, okay, and you have a sip of that and it like cold cocks you,
Yeah.
Wow, that's beer.
Yeah.
Well, there's your Tom Jones. It's not unusual.
I was thinking Delilah. How's it go?
Okay, hold on.
I love microbrews and imports. I cannot drink Budweiser or Miller. I can't stand the taste.
It's like soda pop with an off taste.
Yeah, it's more like dishwater. I just do not like the taste.
There's a joke to go with that. The argument at the Budweiser place was, what is it that Coors Beers has that no other beer has? So this was before it was sold all across the country. They send somebody from St. Louis out to Colorado to buy some Coors, and they take it to a lab. And the report comes back, your mule has diabetes.
Yeah.
Well, guys, on that joke, we're going to have to wind this down. The whole hour is almost up.
Amazing.
And I hope you had fun being
I
sitting in
enjoyed
with
the
us today.
conversation.
Yeah,
and-
see, it's just an impromptu show. Now you were all worried you're going to be like, oh, no.
Well, I was there kind of for a moment. but,
No, this, like I said, I've been doing the show for almost 3 years, and it's just an impromptu show. And
Well-
some of the topics over the years, we've talked about Wonder Woman, like I mentioned, mail order brides, people, that was quite a topic.
Well, I was just gonna say, we want to keep this kind of like G-rated,
Yeah, I know, and, I try to focus on that, and there's been times where we've had guests on over the years, and if I feel it going too far, I have to take control over it.
Yeah.
Turn it back around,
You are
stuff
a
like that.
very, very friendly and easy to talk with host.
Thank you. Yeah, well, that's one of my ultimate goals. Is I want to be a host for real. If I can launch up that new Lawrence Welk show.
Well, that, or you could try opening a talk show here in town,
I thought about that, but for me, now it's not the time. With all the stuff going on with the piano and everything,
Well,
now is not the time.
okay, we all gotta find our own path.
Yeah, I know. I just.
First we gotta launch the path,
But this is good for me, this cafe, because of the impromptu-ness that gives me a chance to hone the hosting skills and stuff. And we've had a lot of guests on this show over the years. You'd be surprised. You'd really be surprised, people in the community. In fact, we had a woman on here a few years back, and after she appeared on this show, she said she was at the bus stop, and she said this car pulled up, "Hey, we saw you on Asaph Cafe. We just wanted to come by and say hi."
Yep.
I had that happen to me too. I was walking downtown one day, just minding my business, and this senior guy, he must have been about 70. "Hey, kid, you're pretty good on that cafe of yours." I was like, "Thank you,
Well,
sir."
you've got a number of things going for you. First of all,
Yeah,
your
so-
haircut. Second, that you're black, and it's kind of a rarity here.
Yeah.
Okay. Third, you've been on stage doing the piano stuff. Okay?
Yeah, well, I've done a lot of concerts.
Now, I
over
honestly
the years.
thought the mall brought in some professional from California or something.
No,
to play
that's
the-
just little old me.
Well-
Can you believe this will be my 8th year coming up this year, 2017?
What
was my
brought you to
8th year.
Missoula?
Actually, I got tired of big city life. I got tired of going 5 miles an hour on a 5-lane highway every day.
So you wanted to go 5 miles an hour on a 2-lane highway like here?
There you go. I just got burned out with the big city, because you know how it is in the big cities, like in Los Angeles and Vegas. You got to get your
That's-
street smarts on, your game
that's-
smart on. Yeah, people are not as open and receptive because so much bad
Yeah.
stuff goes on.
That's why
Yeah.
I'm hanging out
Causes
here
that.
now. I came
And
out here
that's
for
why
a
I came
job,
out
and the
here.
job went away. And this is a good town. When nothing is, it's a good town to be broken. Okay, it's a good town.
Easier to be broke here than in Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Well, I can walk. I live at the outside of town. I can walk to town. The buses are free. I can
right.
bicycle into town.
That's
If I
right.
really, really feel lazy, I can take my car, and it's only a 5-minute ride, even with the 5-mile-an-hour traffic.
This community has been really good to me because see, when I first moved to Missoula, I didn't think I was going to be as known as a pianist as I am now. I just figured this city would have a bunch of piano players like in Los Angeles, dime a dozen. And
And you gotta know
name's-
better. Nobody
name-
plays the piano anymore.
Yeah, but my name started sticking out like a sore thumb when I moved here. It started playing at the Doubletree Hotel, over on Madison. I played at that hotel for 3 years, and for the first 6 months, they didn't even pay me or feed me. And I don't mean that critically, because they had to get to know me.
Yeah, right.
But they kept calling, "Asaph, we need you, we need you." The guy that was supposed to perform didn't show up. I kept showing up, and I kept showing up and showing up and doing all these free concerts, and finally they started feeding me, and then they started paying me. So
Good.
that's how I got started.
Well, very good.
And then how my name really elevated, the Patty Creek Market over there on
Yes.
Higgins. They had a piano in there one day, and I went in there just to get some toilet paper. This was back in like 2009 at that time. And the lady that was working the deli section said, "Hey, we got a piano in the corner in the freezer. Why don't you go place a tune real quick before you go home?" And I thought that was harmless, right? So I sat in front of that freezer and I was freezing my buns off. I was playing this song, and somebody called the owner, Jim Edwards, and he was close by. He actually came in the store and saw me playing the piano in the store, and that's how that started. He said, "Hey, why don't you start playing here all the time? It'd be fun." And then K-Pax News came with those cameras the very next time I showed up. Then they plastered that all over the news. "Yeah, Asaph, I don't know, the piano player is playing at the Patty Creek Market," and they repeated that story for 2 days, and that really got my name out there. And that's how I got started here.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's how I got started.
I
And the
hope
phone
you
started-
find a way to monetize it and make it pay for you.
Well, I've been blessed now because since then my autobiography's gotten published, and my CD is out.
Well, you're the most famous person I've ever heard of.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you're right, and it's true. And just I get to play everywhere, and then they started calling me for the mall, and That turned into a 7-year gig, which will be 8 years this year.
Where is your autobiography at? Is it on Amazon or?
It's on Amazon. It's also at Fact and Fiction over here on Higgins.
Okay.
It's called Supermarket Pianist.
Supermarket Pianist.
That's the name of the song. In fact, the Paddy Creek Market's on the front cover. So, yeah, you should.
You got a Kindle version?
Pardon?
You got a Kindle
Yeah,
version?
it's on Amazon. You can get that too.
Okay. I'll
It
have
got
to check.
a 5-star rating on Amazon too.
Well, there you go.
But no, seriously, I mean, just humble beginnings, and I'm really humble because I didn't plan this. I didn't say, hey, I'm going to get out of the big city and become one of the most known piano players. It just happened.
Yep.
It just sort of, I think it's a providence of the
It was.
word.
Well, you know, that you're the big fish in the small market, okay?
Yeah.
And you've got so many uniques in this town here, and this is a town that's crying for culture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and not only that, I don't know if you know this, you know who my teacher was? You know the singer Little Richard?
Yes.
His manager was my teacher.
Okay, very
Bumps
good,
Blackwell.
very good.
He was my teacher, my main teacher. Almost everything I know about music was because of Bumps Blackwell. And
So-
that's in the autobiography too.
I was gonna say, how did that happen? I guess I got to.
Because when I was 20 years old, you know how in a big city everybody's trying to make it, right? And you know what the odds
What's the
are.
big city for you, Los Angeles?
Actually, if I can get that Lawrence Welk show going, you never know.
But I mean, where'd you hail from?
Well, I was born in Alaska because I'm an Air Force brat.
Okay.
But I grew up in California. So
Okay.
my first job in music was in Los Angeles. And I
Okay.
did a lot of performances, Los Angeles, Hollywood, all those years, a lot.
But the
I
competition-
made Vegas by the time I was 26, but see, there was a competition.
Mm-hmm.
But see, to answer your question, how I met Bumps, there was a student, she's one of my best friends to this day, her name is Deke. And she was a student at Loyola Marymount University at that time who happened to be friends with Bumps Blackwell because he was friends with her family. Her grandfather, I believe, is the story. So she contacted Bumps and said, you gotta hear Asaph play. And so an appointment was set up for me to go to his home to play for him, which I did. And I didn't give it a second thought. I was like, oh, this is cool, okay. Little Rich's manager, I'll say hi to him, play for him, and that'd be the end of it, right? He called my parents a few weeks later saying, I want your son Asaph to come to Los Angeles. I'm going to be his teacher. I'm going to train him. And my mom was so leery because she knew who he was. He's such a famous producer. But, a lot in those days, a lot of those record producers had bad motives.
Right.
And my mom was really leery about me going all the way out there to Los Angeles for
Were you
good.
just a little kid then?
No, I was 20 years old.
Well, then you should have been,
No, but still, it doesn't make any difference whether you.
Well, you're physically safe, but they could still rape your bank account.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And so he just kept calling my parents and reassuring them. And of course, since they knew who he was, they weren't freaked out like it was some guy starting out a record company. So eventually I got on a Greyhound bus, and after I had gone home for the first time, I met him. And he gave me a room at his home. And the very next morning, he pulled out this big sheet music, and I sat right there, and he was literally over my shoulder and was teaching me how to compose all this stuff, and training me and preparing for performing, and just getting that theory down and composing down every day for 3 years. It's like that movie, The Karate Kid. You remember Mr. Miyagi was teaching Ralph Macchio how to fight?
I never saw the movie, but I've seen snippets of it. I know.
Yeah, I couldn't
Yeah.
stand it myself.
Sandy Flaw. But that's a crude analogy of what it
Okay.
was like.
Yeah,
And he passed away before I got to sign the artist management contract after 3 years. But I learned so much. I was 26, I think, at that time. I went to Vegas, got the job with Pat Guidry, the blues singer in Vegas, and that's how I got started.
Fascinating.
That's a true story. It's all in the book. It's all
I'm
in the
going to
book.
have to buy that.
Yeah, Supermarket Pianist. And on that note, let me make some final introductions. I am Asaph Adonai, and here we are through the magic of technology of green screen. We're in the Bat Cave, Adam West Bat Cave. And you can see Adam West in the Batmobile there, and Robin on the other side. And our guest is Carl Richards, but we call him CEO. Thanks for sitting there with us. And on my further left, affectionately our aging rocker. I am Asaph Adonai, your host. Any final words you want to say before we sign on?
No, I think we said it all pretty much.
I
I
will-
was going
Yeah.
to get into the history of the Batmobile, but we didn't even touch that.
That's okay. Well, thanks for sitting in. So until our next show, Maranatha. And I always freeze on that note every show.
Okay.
You guys make yourself at home. Don't move until I shut everything down.
Okay.
And thanks for sitting in with us today.
Not a problem. I have a few words once I kill the camera.